So today we're going to talk about 21.2, and I want to start to, this is our vision statement at Infragistics, and it's what we do around every product. We create simplicity, beauty, and happiness in the world, one app at a time. And we hope this comes through in everything that we show you today. And we're also very aspirational in it. So for example, if it's not perfect today, we're all striving to make it perfect. We have really thought about this over the years, and being in business for 30 years. And as many of you know, using UI controls, it was more, oh, how many features do you get? And then it would kind of look crappy. And then the API would be hard to use. And so we're looking at API. We're looking at how easy it is to use from a developer perspective, and how easy it is from a user perspective, and really how beautiful it is when you deliver this stuff to market. So you'll see this in App Builder. You'll see it in the Angular stuff. We're doing the web component stuff, the Blazor stuff, and then we'll talk about kind of where we're going in the future. So today, my name is Jason. Yep, I'm here in Anchor Bay area, Michigan. Konstantin is our director of product development. He's in Sofia, Bulgaria. Brian is our senior product owner across all of our products, and he is in Boise. And then George is near headquarters in New Jersey. So thanks guys for joining today. We're going to get demos from all these guys, but they're also standing by on chat. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask through the chat. A little housekeeping quick. I forgot about this slide. The slides will be available after, and so will the recording. So you can send the recording to your coworkers and you can get the slides. We'll send those around. John from marketing will send everyone an email that signed up. So 3 pillars of 21.2. We're going to look at hyper productivity with App Builder. We've been talking about App Builder now for a good 6 or 8 months. We're just continuing to improve App Builder. The second area was new UI components, new experiences in Blazor, Angular, React, and web components. Brian's going to demo Blazor. Konstantin's going to show off Angular and web components. And we're continuing to just do more stuff there. React is a little bit behind right now. We're probably about a month behind of where we are in web components, but we're quickly picking this up. And then number 3 is .NET 6 support. So if you were at the .NET Conf back in November and you watched all that stuff, you might have seen our commercial there talking about what we're doing with .NET 6. But in general, if you're using WPF, Windows Forms, ASP.NET Core, ASP.MVC, you're all updated. And more importantly, it actually works with Visual Studio, because Microsoft changed the design surface in Visual Studio, so it didn't work before. So now everything works well. So I'm going to go through about 5 or 6 slides, then we're going to get right to the demos. So bear with the slides. They'll just set up where we're going with what we're going to talk about. So Blazor CodeGen is the big feature that we shipped in the App Builder. This was like the biggest thing everyone asked for last year, and we shipped it in early December. We're still in somewhat of a beta state. There's still a few controls that don't generate yet. We're still working on things like some of the theming. There's a few data binding quirks, but here's the deal with the way that the App Builder works is anything you design. So you can design anything you can imagine, and it's just a switch on what language output you want. So right now it says Angular and Blazor. Pretty soon it's going to say web components. And then right after that, it's going to say React. So my message to everyone is use it now. And then in a week, we're going to ship an update that might have more UI controls that work in Blazor, or better theming. Or in a couple weeks, we're going to make sure that all the data binding works. So start to learn the tool. Start to experiment with it, generate an Angular app, generate a Blazor app, and just start getting going. But, key features that I'll show today: theming and branding, interactions and routing, data binding, syncing with GitHub, code export. It'll come through in the demos. It's pretty impressive. And this is a major focus for us in 2022 is we want to have the absolute best App Builder on the market for you. And what we're doing is continuing to add features that eliminate code that you need to write. So we want you to write less code, and we also want the code that we create to be production ready, enterprise ready, testable, stands the test of time. In Ignite UI, we've shipped a bunch of new Blazor and web components, new controls. And so a lot of this is supporting what we're doing for the app builder. So we have this really rich Angular product. It's got like 60 controls, 50 charts. All of the other products are getting added all of the same controls now. So Blazor, web components, React. So in this release in December, we released these components that you see on the screen. And then we're doing another release at the end of February, beginning of March. That's going to add like the rest, which is probably another 10 or 15 components. And actually, we're going to try to release some incrementally as we get them done. But the point is, I would say by April, if you look at our Blazor product, our React product, our web component product, and our Angular product, there's 100% feature parity in these components. So it's not going to be like, there's no whatever switch control, or there's no select control in web components, but there is in Angular. We are racing to a finish line, which will have feature parity. And then our strategy moving forward is everything is a web component, and then we move it into other platforms, because web components is a standard. It's supported by every browser. And in fact, I'm on a thread with a customer now, and we're talking about web components and how that might help them in the current situation that they have versus going down the path of using Angular or Blazor. So we don't want to make, we want you to just use whatever you want. If you want to use Blazor, great, go for it. We have all the controls. So you're going to see this really improve, but we're really excited to get these in your hands, and Constantine's going to kind of show off what we did there. And then we've added a bunch of new features to the data grid in React, Blazor, and web components. We have the interactive group by, fixed filter row, cell merging, load and save layout, and then probably a bunch of maybe a dozen or so smaller features. But these are the big ticket items that kind of round out what you need as the minimum in an interactive data grid that you need to ship to your customers. And Brian will show you where to find these on the website. And then he's going to talk about show you a couple demos, which we've done some really slick stuff for data binding, and you'll see that in the demo. And then Angular, this is our most mature modern web product because it's been around for a while. But we just updated to Angular 13. We've added new controls. We've added new features. So there's a bunch of new controls. We've added some major features, and we continue to add these features. And the great thing is, as we add controls and features, all platforms benefit because we're looking at this from a web component perspective. And so getting, when you see, they added this cool stepper to Angular, don't worry, that's going to be a web component. That's going to be a Blazor control in no time. So you'll see all of this in that cross-platform parity that we talked about earlier. And so with that, I think that's my last slide. Nope, one last slide here. .NET 6 across all Ultimate products. I mentioned this in the beginning. If you are doing Windows Forms, WPF, or anything that needs the latest .NET framework and takes advantage of the latest .NET framework features, we're all up to date. And in fact, we had another thread with a customer yesterday. Hey, what's going on with WPF? What new controls are you adding? Well, WPF, this product's been in the market since 2003. Our Windows Forms product's been in the market since 2003. So going on 20 years, they are intensely mature products with basically more features than you would ever need to build out your typical line of business application. Now, there's a few things we don't have, but at the end of the day, they're massive products with, hundreds of controls. So what we're doing with these products in terms of effort now, we're ensuring that they are all up to date with the latest Visual Studio designers and the .NET framework. We are updating bugs, so you'll get bug fixes. We are adding new features and new controls and new capabilities, more focused on the data visualization side because there's work to be done there. And then we're also investing in the future, which from the Microsoft UI perspective is around MAUI, multi-application user interface, which is sort of that post-Xamarin story for cross-platform native mobile. and then WinUI, which is Microsoft's next generation cross-platform desktop experience. And then we've also pushed out a preview of the Uno platform, which is from a separate company called Uno. I think, right, Brian, is the company called Uno?
Inventive is technically the name of the company there.
Inventive.
Yeah.
And these guys are super impressive in the technology that they've built. And Uno is truly cross-platform using XAML and using what was the name of that cross-platform runtime from Microsoft?
WinUI, the Windows App SDK.
Yeah, Windows App SDK. And so you can actually write this app and it runs in the browser. It runs on your mobile phone. It runs everywhere. It's like totally amazing. So Uno's another one that we're interested in. So come later this year, probably the Q3 timeframe, you're going to see bullets here for WinUI, for Maui, for Uno. What our goal is I think in the next week or two, we're going to publish an updated version of our WinUI bits. Brian's working on that with the team. Maui will come sometime after that, and Uno sometime after that. So we look forward to your feedback there.
Actually, Jason, I'm happy to announce that we just pushed out another preview, I believe yesterday, with the latest build against the Windows App SDK 1.0. So we are legit as of yesterday. And
just so everyone knows, and even me, the Windows App SDK is WinUI.
WinUI is part of the Windows App SDK.
Okay. So we're all up to date now. People can go download and use our grid, our charts, and all this other good stuff.
Yep, the latest preview is out. We'll be pushing some more updates in the coming week, just little bug fixes and stuff. But yeah, we have a new preview out.
Yep, perfect. And today there's a question about, Brian answered about Windows 11. We support Windows 11. We didn't update the website, and I've been reminded of that yesterday. We kind of missed the updating our supported environments. Windows 11 is fully supported. We always update. We always support the latest version of Visual Studio and the latest version of Windows 100% of the time. So you never have to worry about that. If something doesn't work, let us know, then it's a bug. But you should always depend on us being there for that. So with that, let's jump to the demos. Enough talking. Who did I say is going to go first? Constantine's going to go first, right?
Right.
All right, Constantine, I'll stop my share, take it away, and show us what's going on with Angular and web components and everything else good that you've got.
All right. I hope that you can see my screen now. So yep. I'm just going to minimize this. And I think this was going away automatically. Doesn't matter. I mean, I can switch the tabs anyways. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're located. As Jason already pointed out, 21.2 has a lot of stuff inside. I'm just going to start with developer tools primarily. I'm going to start from Angular and then move through the other web products that we have. And, I'm just going to talk about the new stuff that we've got there in a little bit more detail. So Angular being our primary focus in terms of developer tools at the moment, it gets some new components, which I'm going to demo now. But as Jason said, when we talk about developer tools and when we talk about developer tools by Infragistics, you should think about this being an ecosystem. And so showing you a component like the stepper component right now in Angular means that we're most probably going to show you this component either now or 3 months from now in other web technologies like web components like React, like Blazor. And that's going to hold true for every single thing that we're shipping. So Angular being our most mature product has a lot of the components already available. And so for Angular, we've been developing components that, first of all, have been requested by different users of our product. But second, we haven't had time by now to develop them. And now we've actually reached them and we've gotten to adding them to our design system and then implementing components out of the design system into the specific frameworks. So one of these components is the stepper. Some people call this component the wizard. There are different names for it, but basically what it does, it provides you with steps that your users need to accomplish in order to get to some end result. And here we have this demo where we have built several steps for a user to sign up for a credit card. And this is a dummy demo, of course, but the demo shows that you can go through different steps of the component. Was it Commerce Drive?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna walk through this in order to show how what is the experience with the component, but basically it is a series of forms and checks and so on and so forth. So in this case, it does not allow me to move forward until I've completed this step. So some steps can be marked as mandatory, some can be marked as optional, and so on and so forth. But here, now I can move. You see how the third step became available right after I finished all of the mandatory things in my second step. Now, shipping details is an optional step, and I'm going to show that as well. It depends on whether this checkbox is marked. Now, if I mark it, then I will have to fill shipping details. Okay, so let's move to you see, now I have to fill it. But if I uncheck this, then I can go directly to confirmation. Now, the time that you save by using this component instead of building this whole UI yourself is that the whole thing can be configured. Transitions can be configured just using the component. The different steps can be marked as I said, optional, mandatory, so on and so forth. So it's a pretty neat component. It was requested a lot. I think like the reactions on the issue were much more than other components that have been requested. So yes, we do follow everything that happens on the GitHub repository, and we do prioritize depending on what users also request there. So our priorities are not just something that is in the box. You can never tap into it, and you can never get your whatever you like put on the schedule. No, it's exactly the opposite. Everything that you write in the GitHub repository, we do follow. So next one, highly requested. We have had a combo component ever since we released the product. So I think the combo was like the third or fourth component that we added to Ignite UI for Angular. But the combo is a complex multi-select component with a search field, and a lot of people say, well, I want it to be restricted to a single selection, but still have search. And we were like, yeah, this requires a slightly different design, because right now the search field is outside of the actual input. And then we have these checkboxes that you have to go through like a really complex retemplating of the combo in order to get to something that doesn't have checkboxes for single selection. We were like, okay, it's time. Enough people have asked about this, and right here it is. We have a single select combo with an input field that you can use to search and filter. Okay, and why it took us so long was we didn't know whether many people would actually really need this component. So we needed to get traction on the issue, but at the same time, we had to create an extension component, because if we just created a mode for the combo, then the code branches were going to create a really large and complex control, which is error prone. And this way, if you're using the single select combo, for example, or the regular combo, and you're not using the other one, the other one is going to get tree shaken from the project that you have. And so we are also taking care of how large the end result package is for you. Okay, so just single select combo, nothing more to show here. Now, we have been improving the exporter experience for our grids. And with the latest release, we added support for column freezing, column pinning. You can call it whatever you want, but basically what that means is now when I have when I have pinned columns or rows in my grid or both, after the export, all of those are gonna be shown as frozen columns or frozen rows in the exported Excel sheet. As you can see, also the multi-column headers are exported properly as well, together with all of the data. So multi-column headers were something that we added one release ago. And since Angular is on a feature update cycle of 6 to 8 weeks, the Ignite UI for Angular product gets released more often than just 21.1, 21.2, which is just 2 release cycles a year. So in the previous cycle, which is still in the 21.2, we also released multi-column header support. Okay, next thing I want to show is an accordion component. So we did have an expansion panel for a while, and we were like, yeah, a lot of people ask for an accordion. We should add that as well. And we've added this accordion component, which basically utilizes the expansion panel that we have underneath, but you know, it also combines it so that events are you know, thrown for a single component, and you also can do things like a single branch expand, which you know, just takes care of only one expansion panel being expanded at a time in an accordion view. What is next? Oh, yeah, our paginator component. So pagination is something that we were showing as an out-of-the-box feature for our grid, but you know, the component itself, we were like, yeah, okay, that component is completely separate. Actually, even our grid used it as a separate component, and we were like, yeah, we should just release it so that, you know, everyone can take advantage of you know, the functionality of a paginator, and also to be able to just use the out-of-the-box UI. So it makes a uniform experience. If you have other things that you're paging in your applications, you don't have to, like, you know, create a separate paginator for the other paging experience and then use the out-of-the-box paginator for the grid. So that component is also available now. And I don't know why this thing is not auto hiding. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's see what was next. Oh yeah, next thing. We added, I think, 15 plus new out-of-the-box languages supported by all of our web products. And so previously, the jQuery product, for example, was supported in 6 languages out of the box, which were English, French, German, Japanese, Russian, and Bulgarian, I believe. And Ignite UI for Angular was supported in English, Japanese, and Korean. And then we added 2 or 3 more. But now all of these languages that you see, you know, are supported out of the box by the components. So that means that we ship localization strings for all of the built-in texts of the components with the product. And, you know, this also includes traditional Chinese and Mandarin. So right here, what we have is, yeah, I'm going to show, okay, let's switch this grid to French. And I've taken, I think, 3 years of French in high school, and I'm really bad at it, so I'm not going to even try reading this. But I can also switch it to Hungarian, and we have Korean, as I said. We have Polish, Romanian, Slovenian. Yeah, every language that you can think of in in Europe, as well as a lot of coverage in Asia, and then North America, South America. Okay, and then next thing that I was going to show, oh yeah, I'm trying to not go to this tab because I'm gonna save this for last. So basically, those were the major things that we shipped for Ignite UI for Angular and the last release, like 13.0. But as I said, like a major release like 2021.2 includes up to 3 feature releases for a product. So Jason had things on his slides like the 3-grid grouping, which I'm quickly gonna be able to show you. So those are features like the group by was supported only in the flat grid scenario, but tree grid itself actually renders group by hierarchy similar to what group by would do on a flat grid, but then at the same time it does it on top of hierarchical data. So we exposed this feature where you can dynamically build a column like this first column of the tree grid based on group by expressions. And we were showing how to do this with a sample previously, but now we've exposed it in an out-of-the-box fashion so that you can take advantage of this grouping pipe, which we ship out of the box. And then we have other new components like the tree view, which is the last thing I'm going to show from the Angular stuff. Which I'm showing this one, not because we haven't demoed it before, but because very soon, like it's a few weeks away from being, available in the web components product, which is the next thing that I'm going to talk about. So this component right here is also going to be available in web components in just 1 or 2 weeks. Let's move on to web components. So we've shown the web components product before, and you probably have seen that it did have the doc manager, it did have a table, a grid, it did have a whole lot of different charts, but then it was missing the basic building blocks which weren't exposed previously. So the grid had things like, a date picker, for example, or so buttons or, switches, different components like that. But those were either hidden, not usable by developers outside of the context of this component, or they weren't at all built, like they were utilized from somewhere else. Now we have a very large set of these atomic building blocks for web components, similar to what we do have for Angular. And so list, for example, is not an atomic component. The list contains, it is basically a holder with list items, some of which are headers and some of which are just basic list items. But in this example, for example, the list also does have buttons. It does have an avatar and then different text nodes inside. But we now have a list out of the box in the web components product. We also have all of these like badge, button, checkbox, a form component, icon, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to read through all of them. Like Jason was showing in the screenshot, the calendar. You probably will notice that the calendar looks a little bit different than the one that we have in Angular. Functionality wise, it's exactly the same calendar, meaning the behaviors are the same. Look and feel wise, the calendar that we have in Ignite UI for Angular was designed after the material design system, but what it was 3 or 4 years ago. The calendar that we have in web components does follow the absolute latest standards for material, bootstrap, Fluent, so on and so forth, like whatever however you want to rethink them. And so all of these components do have demos in here, but I also wanted to mention, just like Ignite UI for Angular, Ignite UI for web components is an open source product. And so you can take a look at the source code of those atomic components inside the repository. And I will be very, pleased if you guys give us a star both on Ignite UI for web components and on the Ignite UI for Angular repositories. All of these, both of these are located under the Ignite UI organization on GitHub. And so you can also see them in the pinned once you get there. So yeah, really happy if you give us a star, but all of the components are located here. And we also have things like a roadmap and, different plans that we do. The wiki contains specifications for the components and so on and so forth. Just exactly the same thing that we did for Ignite UI for Angular. Also, we do have a storybook, and the storybook is on the GitHub IO page. It can be accessed from here. And so what I was going to show is, yeah, in the storybook, you can see very basic examples of all those basic components. You're probably going to ask, why is the switch looking different from what the switch looks like in Ignite UI for Angular? Well, it doesn't look different. It's just in the web components, the default that we're showing them with is Bootstrap. In Ignite UI for Angular, the default that we're showing them with is Material. But we support both in both products. And so you see how one and the same component can look extremely different depending on what type of theme variant or the theming options that we offer you choose. And so let's show all of this put together though. And I'm going to show this in the doc manager. By the way, there is the new sample for the doc manager showing how to retheme this component and how to achieve different application scenarios. And this sample now has a list inside which comes from web components, which also has avatars and badges and buttons and all of the different components that we do have in Ignite UI for web components. And it's still the old doc manager, so you can do everything that you were able to do before that with it, but with the new look and feel and with all of the new components inside. And Jason, these were all of the things that I wanted to show. And by the way, let me answer one of the questions that was in Zoom. So one of the questions was, when are we gonna support React in the app builder? So as I was talking about the components, Angular is something that we started building 4 years ago. Ignite UI for web components is something that we started building like a year ago. All of the components that we're gonna put out from this point onwards, like Blazor, React, if another framework comes up, we may consider also supporting it, but all of these components are going to be powered by the web components. And so as you can see, we have the foundation for giving you a full-blown React support on top of components that already exist. And once we have them, we just enable this with a switch in the app builder, and you are able to export to React as well as web components, as well as Blazor, as well as Angular. That's it from me.
All right, cool. I was just answering a couple questions here. That's awesome. Thank you, Constantine. Right now I'm answering, do we support export to PDF for grid? So for MVC, we have a backend library, like a server library for PDF, which you can download if you have Ignite UI. You won't see it in the Angular thing. You'll see it over in jQuery or MVC. So you can use that it's a whole PDF library. We have a Word library. We have a bunch of other stuff. Rich text editor for Angular. No, we don't. And we really don't plan on doing one this year. There's some really good open source ones out there. And it's kind of like, that's like, it's almost like a grid control. You need 10 people to work on it to make it perfect. So I forget, Brian, what was that open source?
Quill.js is the one I really like.
Yeah, Quill.js. So take a look at QUILL.js. And actually we use that in another product. Portuguese is Portuguese. So what we do is we do the language translation using Google Auto ML, and then we have a company that does all the cleanup. So yeah, it's Portuguese from Portugal. And then George is answering, will Adobe XD have a demo today? Yeah, I'm going to demo that in a minute. And then there was something about Indigo and prototyping. Indigo Studio is a retired product at this point. It was built in Silverlight. Silverlight really doesn't work anywhere anymore. So App Builder is the path forward there. But we have an image-based prototyping server, so you can upload anything, any image, sync with Sketch, soon to sync with other platforms and do your prototypes. So with that, Brian, I'll let you take it away and show some of this Blazor stuff.
All right. Let me find the share button on the Zoom thing. Here it is. All right, let me know when you can see my screen. And I see what Constantine was talking about. There's this big Zoom bar taking up this whole tab area that you probably can't see, but it's blocking my browser.
Yeah, it disappears eventually, but yeah,
It sometimes does, but most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, it's still there, but I'll just use tab. It's fine. Okay, so I just want to go ahead.
No, sorry, I wasn't on mute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I just want to cover what we've released recently with 21.2 regarding Blazor. And we actually released a ton of new controls. So there's really too much for me to kind of go through here on during the webinar, but I do want to highlight a few of the controls. So first, if we go to our changelog, we'll see all the new controls we shipped. It's about 15 new controls: the avatar, badge, button, and the icon button, card, checkbox, form, icon list, navigation bar, navigation drawer, a radio group, ripple, and a switch. These are just new components. We also released a number of new features for the grid. So I want to highlight a couple of these because I use these a lot myself. That being one, the nav bar. So this is that very common navigation bar at the top of most websites that you see now, where you have normally some type of home menu, or like you open the nav drawer here by clicking this button with other icons at the top, like login with your hamburger menu. It's all responsive. That was shipped. This is one of my favorites. This works in combination with the navigation drawer. So I'm just going to scroll down to a sample here where we already have the integration kind of being demoed, where we have the nav bar at the top. And then when you click the little hamburger menu here, it will open up, depending on, if it's on the start, the end, wherever you want to put it, it opens up the nav drawer with all your navigation items in it. So I wanted to highlight those. I also want to highlight the card. This is another very useful control that I find myself using more times than I thought I would, but it's actually very useful because of how flexible it is on how I want to represent visual information and data and provide, buttons and links and behaviors to that specific data item. For example, we have a pretty cool example down here where you have a music playlist, and you can just hit play and back and forward and that kind of. You can get really creative with this type of control. Now, I want to skip into the data grid, because besides all those 15, 16 new controls we added to Blazor, we added some pretty cool features to the data grid in Blazor. The first one being cell merging. Now, this was a very popular request from our financial customers. They use this feature a lot. And basically what cell merging does is says, hey, if I have a whole bunch of data in a column that is the same, I want just to see kind of one cell, right? I want all those contiguous cells to be merged into one, instead of seeing a whole bunch of different individual cells of the same value. And as you can see here, for example, credit, right? We can see that we have one big cell for credit, but all three of these records here have the same value. And you can see this when I go to edit. If I go to edit, you can see that the merged cell then splits to where I can edit this value properly. And once I come out of it, excuse me, we can see that it's now merged again, okay? Another one that is my personal favorite is we have added a new filter row. Now, I don't know if you've used the Blazor grid before, but prior to this, to do filtering, you would have to come in here and you would have a filter option, which is turned off right now. And it was just hard because you wouldn't know what was filtered and what wasn't filtered. Well, now with the filter row option, you can change you know, what the comparison is it equals, not equals, starts with, contains, ends with, right? It's like, for example, does this start with a 3? I don't know. But this allows you to, you know, have more flexibility over how you filter your data in the grid. And not only that, the comparison here, the operator will change based on the data type. For example, this is the date column. So you can see that I have different options here, like month, year, yesterday, tomorrow, this week, this quarter, next quarter, you know, this year, next year. Like I have a whole bunch of different options related to date filtering. Not only that, you can also put in custom filter operators. So for example, if I come down here to the docs here, I can see that I have a custom class filter here. So I have a custom filter operand that I created in code, but I've added it to the menu. And if I click that, that code is invoked and I can't even type. Like I can determine if my operand allows a value to be typed in or not. And in this case, I can't type in this filter text box here because this custom operand does not allow that. Okay, so wanted to point that out. That's really awesome. 2 more that are really helpful is the ability to load and save layouts. This was another real popular request from just about everybody. Basically, your end users, they move some things around, right? They, oh yeah, I wanna save that layout. I think I need to change the batteries in my mouse. And then, you know, I can load that layout back, right? Pretty easy, pretty simple, but very handy. And the last feature I want to show here is row grouping. Now, previously, if you wanted to do grouping, you had to once again use our column options dialog here, where you would group using this little group icon, right? Well, now what we have is we have the ability to group by drag and drop. So now I can just drag my column up into my group by area. And now we can see that my data has been grouped by that. And for example, you can just keep going with it more and more and more. You can sort from up here by clicking your groups. So you can sort your groups. But that is another feature that we've added that is very handy in the grid. Now, I'm a little short on time. However, there is one more really cool feature that we added that I just have to show off. So right here, I have a Blazor server application. It's using Ignite UI for Blazor. And to set it up, I did a couple steps. First, I added the Ignite UI.blazor NuGet package. That's on NuGet, freely available in trial. I added Ignite UI Blazor to our services. I made sure to add our app bundle script. And I brought in the theme I wanted to use. In this case, I just picked material for just because I did, copy and paste. And then I added my using statement for my controls. So that's kind of the steps it takes to create or use Ignite UI for Blazor in a Blazor application. Just a few steps. But what I want to highlight here is I have this data grid. Now, usually when you're working with web, you're working with a lot of like dynamic data. You're working with JSON data. And sometimes, you know, if you're in Blazor and you're doing data binding, you're working with, you're going to have an object to work with. You have to create a C# class. You have to, you know, serialize your objects into C#. So if you're calling a web service and it's returning JSON, and you're like, oh, I got to create these backing fields just so I can have something to bind to. You know, it can kind of be a pain in the butt sometimes. The great thing about, you know, Blazor is that it's C#, it's, you know, strongly typed, but sometimes that's also a con, because it's not as flexible as JavaScript, right? As in a React or Angular application. However, this feature is really cool. Let's say I have a data source I want to use. In this case, I'm going to go to excel2json.io. What this is, it's a website that I built that allows you to convert Excel documents into JSON data. So for example, I'm going to browse, I'm going to get this Northwind Excel document. And the file's going to load up here. It's just going to take a second. Now I'm on the customers tab. I don't know if you see at the bottom here, we have these different tabs. I'm on the customers tab, and you can see here that I have all the JSON for that table in Excel. And this is the data I want to use in my Blazor application. But you know, I don't want to have to create a business object to back this. I just want to show it in the grid. Like I just want to data bind and call it good. So instead of copying and pasting this out, I'm actually going to click this get link button. Now I'm going to copy that get link. Now I'm gonna come to my data grid. I'm gonna set the data source, not data committed, data source. And we have a special syntax, remote JSON dot from, and I'm gonna put my link in there. Now I'm gonna hit F5, run the application. It's probably gonna open up on my other monitor. Oh, it didn't open right here. And as soon as hot reload connects, boom, there's the data from my Excel spreadsheet that is being fed from Excel to JSON, the data source that we just created. How freaking cool is that? This is a huge time saver for me because I'm always doing a lot of demos, a lot of proof of concepts. And so this allows me to quickly bind to data. If I wanted to support editing, I would just handle the editing events to make sure I save off any data that was editing. But the idea here is that with a simple one line of code, I can simply data bind to any JSON data source. Either it could be a file on the server, a local file that I'm reading in, that's fine. But in this case, I'm using the share API from Excel to JSON to feed me this data from the Excel to JSON service. And so I really want to show that because this is kind of like a hidden feature. This is one of those that we don't really talk about, but it's like really useful and I use all the time. So as far as what's coming up, yeah, this thing has not gone away. So I'll have to bring this down and back up. Constantine briefly mentioned the roadmap for the web components, but if you look at this, this is what we are working on for our March delivery for web components and Blazor. So what you see here is going to be coming to Blazor as well. So these are going to be the next 9 controls that we're working on, not only for web components, but for also Blazor. And then these are the next ones after that. So after we complete this list targeting March, we will then prioritize this list and we'll have another date, target date that we'll try to hit. So if you want to just bookmark this page, keep an eye on it, and you'll know what we're releasing, when we're releasing. And this list changes also. We might get a request for like a diagram control, and we'll have to prioritize that and put that on the roadmap. So yeah, that's all I got. If there's any questions, I'm going to be hanging out in the chat and answering questions in the Q&A. Otherwise, Jason, feel free to take over and talk about App Builder. You're on mute, my friend. You're on mute. Yeah,
okay, there we go. Okay, a couple questions. If you want to know where all of our samples are for like really polished, awesome samples, go to Learn and Support Reference Applications. And we've got a ton of things here. Someone asked about Xamarin. We've got this app called Moo2U. Download that and you can play with that. If you want like awesome Angular samples, we have so many here that, too many to go over, but go check this out. The other thing someone mentioned that the help doesn't look good. Send me a screenshot. If I go to App Builder and I go to Help Docs, this is what I see. And so, yeah, someone said there was a rendering issue. Send me a screenshot, jasonb@infragistics.com. So right now I'm going to focus on App Builder. I am going to walk you through something real quick. In fact, I'm going to go back to Reference Applications. I'm going to click Indigo Design, and I'm going to click the People app here. Now on the People app, the reason I'm showing you this is because you can download Adobe XD files. You can download sketch files. You can download the Angular app. You can launch the prototype, or you can open this right in App Builder. I want to show you the Adobe XD plugin that we just shipped. In order to get the Adobe XD plugin, open up your Creative Cloud, go to Stock and Marketplace, search for indigo.design. It says turn your designs into code. We better give this another star. What's going on there? And this will install inside of Adobe XD. So once you've installed that, then any application that's built with our UI kits, you can just automatically generate code for. So check this out. I downloaded the Adobe XD file already, so we don't need to do it again. Let me go to my downloads folder here, and you're going to see Ignite UI, Adobe XD. Here's the People app. I'm going to just double click on it and open this guy up. Adobe opened up on my other screen here. Come on, Adobe. Hold on, it's loading. Here we go. All right, so now here's the People app. And now what this is an application that's built with our components. All of our UI kit components map to the components that we have in the product. So everything's one-to-one. Anything that you design with all of these UI controls, you can generate code with. So what we do here, yeah, now this thing's not going away from me. That's really annoying. What we do here is after you install the Indigo Design plugin, I've got this Indigo Design menu on the plugins drop down. So I'm just going to click Create New App. Let me click this. This is our dialog. I want it to be in my project's workspace. I'm going to call this Webinar Demo, People App Webinar Demo, and I'm just going to click Create App. So now this is going up to the cloud, generating an app for us, an app builder, and I can click this link and I can open this up directly inside of App Builder. Now, something else that I want to show you, you notice it opened this up in the web browser. In our release in December, we shipped a desktop version of App Builder, which is an Electron app. So it's basically everything that you would expect, but although in the desktop. So here, if you download it, you get this installer, double click it, it installs, and then you have an icon for the app builder. So now I'm here inside of my, my Electron app. I'm in my projects, and you can see here, People App Webinar Demo from Adobe XD was created. I can go ahead and click Edit. Now I'm inside the app builder, and this is just mind-boggling because what we've done is we've actually done a real design to code. We took a design that your design team created using the Ignite UI kits, and we converted it transformed it into an actual common object model that we can now generate Blazor or Angular code with. So if I take a look at this, you'll see these are real list boxes. And if I click an item, I've got my properties over here, and there's things I can do with this. I'll go back to my other screens. Here's the edit person screen. Here's the add person screen. And if I go back to Adobe XD, it's basically pixel perfect. It's missing some of these image assets. That's something that we're adding right now. It actually works for Sketch, but not XD right now. But the point is, pixel perfect, exactly what you design ends up in the app builder. So now I'm here in the app builder. What can I do with this? Well, let's go ahead and trigger some action on this button. So I want to add an interaction, and I'm going to say navigate to, pick a view. Let's go to the add person view. So now when I preview this, so now this is the actual running application, and I click this button, it actually has the routing and everything built in production ready code that you can go ahead and use in your application. And then I could simply go back to edit, select Blazor or Angular, publish this to GitHub, or download a zip. So that's the Adobe XD story. The next thing I want to show you is another feature we added in the December, actually it might have been even in November. I'm going to go ahead and do a blank layout in App Builder. And remember, in App Builder, I can drag items from the toolbox. So here is the toolbox of all the controls. And let's say I want a grid. I can drag this grid onto my screen, or I can do a Control E and I can get a list of components that I've used recently, or search for anything that I want. So here I'm going to search for grid. I want to add a grid. I want this grid to be 100 pixels wide, 100% wide, I'm sorry, and 100% tall within this container. So let me change this from pixels to percent. And using Brian's XL2 JSON tool, I actually updated a financial data set. So now there's like, I don't know, thousands of rows in this thing. We'll see in a minute anyway. But this is what we added. Check out, I'm going to set my primary key to be ID, but check out this features button. Look at all the stuff now that you can just simply click to add. So as you'll notice, the grid on the in the design surface, it's actually adding all these features in real time. So I just added column selection, editing, grouping, filtering, blah, 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 blah. Amazing. This is a financial grid, right? If you're in the fintech space, you love dark theme. So I can change this to material dark, but I actually like fluent dark better. Someone asked about custom theme. Maybe I want to create a new theme. You can actually create your new theme, your own colors, typography, roundness, elevation. Once you create a theme, it ends up in your custom themes in your workspace. So if I want to go with this, you know, orangish looking theme or my Poppins theme, I can do that too. But I want to go back here to custom themes and I want to go back to my fluent dark, or you can do indigo dark, indigo light. But the point is, any theming customization is built in. Now let's go ahead and click the preview button. And this is where the money is. You get all of the code that you otherwise would have had to write yourself. So there's CSS, TypeScript, HTML. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this in Angular. So this is Angular. I'm going to publish this to GitHub, and we're going to call this demo grid 1. And now it's published to GitHub. I'll create the repository, let it go over to GitHub, click publish. And here we are. Now this is in my team's source control system. And I'll click this guy and you'll see that everything is right here. Here's my source. There's my app, all this good stuff. So now what do you do with this thing next? What I would do is I would go copy this. I would go and I would open a new instance of Visual Studio Code right here. Visual Studio Code, where are you? There we go. I would do a Command-Shift-P. I would clone this guy, paste in this, and now I've got a repository here that has all of this stuff in it. At this point, all you need to do is go to terminal, new terminal, npm install. That will install. That's going to take a couple minutes. I already have this guy running because I'm fully prepared. So this is the same application. I just recreated it in 2 seconds. And so check this out. This is what the output would look like. In fact, this is, I think, the material, not the other theme. But in literally 3 clicks, I have this grid. It has all of this stuff, all my data. It's got column summaries. I've got my Excel style dropdown with filtering, searching, all this good stuff, column moving, column pinning. Let's pin a couple columns to the left. That was contract. Let's do country. I want to pin that. I want to group by region, and I want to group by type. And so here I have all of my groups built up perfectly. I can do select all rows. I can move some columns around. So let's move this guy here. Now you see my pin columns on the left. Awesome. But what's even cooler is our toolbar here gives us a bunch of free features. So I got my pin columns here, my visible and invisible columns, our advanced filter dialog. But check out export. And Constantine mentioned this in his demo. I'm going to export this guy to Excel. Now look at what you get. Let's open this file up. I don't just get some lousy CSV file that, I got to go format. I actually get a formatted Excel file with fixed columns with the hierarchies that I've defined in my grid exactly like it was. So now if we scroll down here, this was actually 2,700 rows or 2,300 rows or something like that. But my point is, with App Builder, you can do magical things with effortlessly. It's like unbelievable. So now let's go back to App Builder and let's do something else. I'm going to go back to my projects. I'm going to do a new app and I'm going to go to our sample apps. In our sample apps here, I've got the people app. And again, this is the same thing that we basically took from XD, but this one's designed a little bit differently in our samples. So I'm going to say try sample. So once the people app opens up, what we'll see here is we've got our master and child views. And since we're running low on time, I'm going to do something real quick just to show you how all of this is going to work in Blazor. I'm going to duplicate the My Info page. So I'm going to click duplicate. So now I got a third screen and I'm going to call this, let's call this guy products. So in the product screen, I want to delete all this just because I don't want it here. And I'm going to delete all this. I could probably delete the whole thing. Let's go up to job, hit delete. delete, delete. And what did we do before? I added a grid. Let's do a Control E. I'm going to do a grid, and everyone already knows I'm going to do a grid that's 100% wide and 100% tall. We're using a flex layout system here, so it's pretty slick. And I want this to be my products data set. So here's my products. And then I'm going to go back to my info here, and I'm going to change pay info. I'm going to call this products. And I mean, yeah, this isn't like, yeah, I got products in my HR app, but I'm trying to show you guys how easy it is to do this. So now we just added routing from products button to the products page. And all of this design and routing is already done for me. So let's go ahead and preview this guy, and let's go home. Let's go to my info. Let's go ahead and click products. And there's my products with my grid. How awesome is that? Now I'm going to go back to edit, and I'm going to change the Angular drop down to Blazor. I am going to download this. Actually, let me change this to People App Webinar so I don't have any conflicts. I'm going to download this zip file. You could publish it to GitHub as well. And we'll call People App Webinar. So now that's downloaded in my downloads. There's People App Webinar. Let's extract this code, double click, open up my C# project file here in Visual Studio. And what we're doing now is we're installing those dependencies. So we've got the .NET Core, we've got the Ignite UI for Blazor package. And all I'm going to do now is hit the run button and watch the magic happen. All of this without me writing a single line of code, all done with the app builder, taking one of the samples or using one of the screens that you design yourselves. And this is a full-on Blazor application with all the routing that you would expect, with all the data that you would expect, with all those grid features that I just showed you. In my Angular application, you automatically get on the Blazor side, and it's all production ready code. There's no joke here. We're not like, hey, this is something that I wouldn't use in real life. This is the code that, hey, if you think that we need to change something in the code, please let us know, because that's the goal with this product, is that the way that we're generating code is how you would write the code yourself. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, if I go back to Visual Studio Code, if you remember, I'll go to my my master view here, and here's my HTML component. Here's my TypeScript component. And Brian showed you Excel to JSON. And, when we're building and generating this code, we're actually creating data services. Those data services are actually going off to the web and getting the API. So like if you have a web API returning a JSON or a REST URL, just start using it in Blazor or Angular today. It'll work. So with that, that was my demo that I wanted to show. Super fast at the end, but impactful what you can do here. And even in this example, if I want to change this to a different theme, boom, it just takes one click. I don't have to go think about it. And let's say that my my design team says, hey, we really like this material dark you're using, but can you change the font? Well, I can just duplicate material dark. I can go to typography and let's go to the Oswald font, and I can use Oswald. So I'm going to save this, and now my UI gets updated with the Oswald font. And so the entire application gets taken care of. And then if I want to, for example, change colors, do other things, you have an appearance on these UI components in your property editor that will let you change whatever you want. So in this case, if I want to change something, I could change, something to green or whatever and update. So you're really not limited.
Hey, Jason, real quick, we had a question. Could you just clarify where the data came from? There's a little confusion about the data tab and where that came from, where you set that up.
Yeah. So here, let's go ahead and do I have a quick Excel file? Well, I'll just show you how you do it. So you click the plus sign, you click REST API. So now here I have my dialog to add a URL or add a REST API. And in fact, I don't have one handy. Maybe Brian, you got something you can paste me real quick?
Yeah, I did. I just pasted it. You should be getting it like right now.
Did you do it? Where did you do that, in Teams?
In Teams.
All right, let me open up Teams here. So basically all you need is a URL. Let's grab this guy here. Brian, copy this. So I am going to name this Brian's URL, and I'm going to add a URL. Here's my URL. I'm going to click done. Now I'm going to select data. Let's just select all. We have this thing here where I can, change the data type if we're not sure. I'll make this a string. I'm going to call this my table. Hit enter, click done. Boom, Brian's URL with my table. There's my fields. Now let's go here. Let's go ahead and add a new view. So I'm going to make this a child view here and just call this grid. And in grid, we'll do a Control E, grid. Now there's my grid. Let me go to data, Brian's URL, my table. That's all of the data Brian just sent me. So in no time, this happens. Now, what are we doing and what are we going to ship in the next few weeks is you have an ASP.NET Core Web API that's connected into all your backends. You can just pull in that Swagger definition. And in this dialog, you're going to say, whoops, let me go to data. In my data dialog, you're going to say import Swagger. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a whole list of get, post, puts, all this other stuff. You select them, and it's just going to automatically pull in that data into the app builder. So we are continuing to work on the data story. And in fact, we've got some other neat ideas like using different types of backends that already provide these REST APIs. So we're on the cusp of really eliminating all the data access code that you do.
Yeah, and we just added the link to the Discord in the chat. So we have a Discord channel where we discuss all our products, specifically App Builder, but we talk about other products in there, especially Angular and Blazor. So the link is in the chat. So feel free to join our Discord.
All right. So I think, Brian, you answered all these questions. Looks good. Looks good. Yeah. So, I mean, we do bi-weekly YouTube live sessions. So keep an eye out on your email for those bi-weekly YouTube sessions, because those are always very interactive and fun. And sometimes things don't work, but you get to see how all this comes together. We do a webinar on specifically App Builder once a month. And let me again look here, because there is also something I'll paste in the chat. We have a YouTube playlist here that you can, let me copy this and put this into the chat for everyone. You can watch this YouTube playlist, and it has all kinds of good stuff. So like customizing dialogues, branding and theming, binding REST data, all this stuff is available. Okay, make it more visible. You mean make the app builder more visible or the playlist, Edgar? Let me know, because we will. And this is a new playlist. Actually, we created it last week. Oh, the Discord link. Yeah, we should do that. We need the Discord to be more visible. We'll put it on the app builder page, because that's really where everyone hangs out. Yeah, so that's all we had for today. So now if I go back to the slides, let's just take a look here. Get 21.2 today, go to infragistics.com. If you log in to my account, you'll see you can just download all this stuff. Check out the new desktop version of App Builder. It just makes it easy because it's down there. You click it. You don't have to worry about accidentally closing your browser window. George actually has some designs where we can have multiple tabs in there. So we're going to continue to make this easier for you to use in the future. So yeah, thanks everyone. If you go back up to the top here in the deck, we're always available. If you have any questions post webinar, that's my email. That's Constantine's email, George, and Brian. You can email any one of us what you like, what you don't like, what you need. If there's something that you don't like about the UX, easy. Blame George and send him an email and tell him how to fix it. If you need features in the product or the API isn't simple and beautiful, email Constantine and Brian, and then email me for only good news and good things. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time today. We hope you download 21.2 and app builder from infragistics.com, and we will talk to you at the next webinar. Thank you.